Elon has been front and center in the news for the past 48 hours for two reasons. First, he was awarded Time's Person of the Year. Not that that means anything. After all, Biden and Harris was awarded it last year. And like everything else they touch, it immediately depreciates in value. Still, I offer up my congratulations to Musk. He clearly deserves it, being that he's done more for humanity than any of his haters, including providing jobs to thousands and thousands of people, and his hard work ethic has made him the richest man in history. And it's his success that the progressive socialist left just cannot stand. Their own greed drives them to bully Elon every chance they get, and make no mistake, they are bullies. Twatter, doing what Twatter does best, descended upon the African American and dogpiled him like a bunch of racists with Marxist talking points. Karl Marx was a racist and a deadbeat loser who admired the devil and unashamedly mooshed off his dying parents. Pay your fair share, okay? Is a slogan that Marx followers spew today, unashamed of their own envy. Seemingly totally ignorant of how well off even the poorest among us are under capitalism compared to any prior point in history. Even America's proudest self-identifying Indian mounted up a couple days ago and went on the attack against the Texan, accusing Elon of not paying taxes and freeloading off everyone else. Well, as you can imagine, Elon was quick on the draw and defended himself and drove the rabid senior citizen back to her posh teepees, of which she owns two. The rest of us would just call them homes. You remind me of when I was a kid and my friend's angry mom would just randomly yell at everyone for no reason. Please don't call the manager on me, Senator Karen. And if you open your eyes for 2 seconds, you would realize I will pay more taxes than any American in history this year. Don't spend it all at once. Oh wait, you already did. Yeah, and with that, America witnessed yet another cowboy massacre an Indian. At least I assume she died because she never followed up. Just the sound of silence. Rip. Elizabeth Warren is an unapologetic socialist. And that's fine. Although the left doesn't believe we're all entitled to our own opinions, which is why they're pro-censorship, I do, even if history proves that those opinions are derp. But don't believe for 1 second she and her comrades in government, like Bernie or AOC, give two squatting bears about the everyday working man or woman. The reason they are so adamant about the wealthy paying their fair share, which is a dishonest term, okay? A 10% flat tax would be a fair share, while they themselves use tax loopholes and live life high on the hog with their multiple homes and $10,000 freezers with $15 pints of ice cream in them, while they're doubling the size of the IRS to go after small business owners, is because they leech off the American taxpayer. That's how they can afford to live their comfortable lifestyles, through your taxes. It's not your money, it's their money. Pretty ignorant coming from members of the elite who didn't build anything, who don't employ people, and therefore don't empower anyone with the dignity that comes with working and being self-reliant instead of reliant on handouts. They want to use your tax dollars to keep themselves in power and expand the size and scope of government, along the way redistributing a portion of that wealth to the populace so they can control them. That's what socialists do, which is why socialism leads to communism. And ultimately millions of people dead in camps than the National Socialist German Workers' Party could ever dream. Don't be mad at me for saying it. That's what history, and even Stalin himself, tells us. Speaking of red fascism, this brings us to the second reason that Elon has been the talk of Twattertown this week. During his interview with Time magazine, Elon was finally asked his opinion on vaccine mandates, from someone other than yours truly, that is.
Are you vaccinated, if I
Yes.
may ask?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very pro-vaccination.
Yeah.
I believe the science is unequivocal.
Yeah.
I treat it to that effect. But by the same token, I am against forcing people to be vaccinated. You know, I think this is just not something we should do in America. I think we should encourage people to be vaccinated, strongly try to convince them to be vaccinated,
Right.
but not force them to be vaccinated, or for example, force them to get vaccinated or get fired.
I've been trying for a while now to get a comment from Elon or SpaceX regarding Biden's vaccine mandates for government contractors, but it's become a non-issue at the moment thanks to the Constitution and federal judges abiding by it. The answer Elon gave in the interview, of course, angered the authoritarians. I mean, how dare any American not support the idea of exchanging liberty for safety? That Ben Franklin guy didn't know the first thing about being an American. And yes, to be clear, advocating for a COVID vaccine mandate does make you an authoritarian. Saying it's for the safety of the people is the same excuse Hitler gave for rounding up the Jews and throwing them in the slums. They're spreading disease. They're responsible for our suffering. We all know what that led to, right? The common theme is that every one of them believes that their way is the right way and so want to force said way on their subjects. It's like the definition of authoritarianism. And that's why the American Bill of Rights puts individual liberty at the top of the list. Other countries don't have those rights, which is why some foreigners like this guy can't wrap their head around what it means to be an American. And that's okay. I understand why. Their history is not our history. America fought a bloody Revolutionary War over the very idea of freedom. Proudly, my own great-grandfather, times 7, James Levin Hurley, fought in the Continental Army under George Washington at the battles of Brandywine and Germantown. Another great-grandfather of mine immigrated to this country just prior to the start of the Civil War, and yet still fought for the Union Army to free slaves. I'm proud of my heritage and what it means to be an American. And that's why a lot of other people are also proud to call themselves Americans. But lacking a Bill of Rights is why citizens of other nations are experiencing forced relocation to camps. Still though, week after week, the patriots of these countries protest in the streets for freedom. And I support them. To me, they are more American than anyone here advocating for mandates. Because America is synonymous with freedom. Elon clearly knows this. He must have done well on his citizenship test. But with that being said, I don't think he scored perfectly. Because he also believes, at least he did last year, maybe he has since changed his mind, that the government's job is to make people happy. It's not. It's to protect our God-given rights. Not grant them. They've already been granted by God. That's why they're called the inalienable rights. But protect them so the individual can pursue their own happiness. I mean, I love Elon. He's a good guy and a bold patriot. But don't think for 1 second that I'll just follow anyone blindly like a lost little sheep. We should all learn to think for ourselves. And I know Elon would respect me saying that. And by the way, comparing mandates to seatbelt and speed limit laws is the worst comparison I've ever heard. First of all, these mandates are not law, right? If you don't agree, that's fine. I can sit you down with a lawyer wife and you'll be sorry. And second, unless you're liquefying and injecting seat belts and speed limit signs into people's bodies, violating bodily autonomy, they are no way similar. So please stop with the fallacies. If you're going to defend tyranny, at least start with being honest enough to admit that's what you're doing. I understand if you're scared of dying from a disease with less than a 0.5% death rate. But maybe instead of trying to force others to lose their freedoms, you should just restrict your own instead. Stay home. It shouldn't bother you if you lose your job because that's exactly what you're advocating for with those who choose not to take the vaccine. The thing that stood out to me the most about this whole Elon situation is the silence from his most public supporters. Other YouTubers and influencers in the space community who dogpiled on me last year when I sent a twat to my governor concerning mask mandates, Ohio was one of the first to do so. All of these people, with the exception being Lab Padre, came at me for saying what Elon is saying now. If you want to wear a mask, that's fine. I was wearing one. In fact, I was recommending it. Of course, now we see all the health and mental health issues forcing someone to wear a mask all day can have, especially on our youth. But I was saying just don't mandate them because that is clearly a slippery slope and can lead to a total overreach and the loss of personal freedom. They didn't care, and fine, they were scared. But what disturbed me was how passionately they were arguing to end individual choice. I mean, what happened to my body, my choice? I guess it's only acceptable to choose to stick scissors through the back of babies' skulls. Do I have that right? Here I was trying to stand up for everyone's personal freedom, including theirs, but they wouldn't even stand up for their own because this was a mandate they could agree with. Apparently too naive to see that eventually it comes full circle. Give it time and those in power will mandate something on you that you don't agree with. That's how it works. Ask Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Oh wait, you can't because they killed him. One of these people, a Starship digital artist active in the space community, wrote, "People cannot be trusted to make their own decisions." Wow, I will never forget that. That is the most un-American thing I've ever read. Maybe he's not American. I admit I didn't care to ask. But point is, history shows that clearly our side of the issue was right. Look at where we're at now. Normally at this point, I would tell you how effective mask mandates have proven to be, but YouTube will just censor this video. Besides, all of you honest people already know anyway. Obviously, mask mandates haven't been effective enough to keep the world from locking down over and over again. Lockdowns that increase the suicide rate, crash economies, supply chains, and bankrupt small businesses, leading to even more suicides. But all of these pro-authoritarian Musk fanboys have once again fallen silent, as they do with every base tweet Elon puts out. I'd like to think they realize now how wrong they were, but I'd also like to think I'm not that gullible. No doubt they're still doing the dishonest word games they always do. Before, it was accusing the other side of being anti-mask when really it was all about anti-mask mandates. And now these fanboys are just trying to cover for themselves by saying the argument was never about mandates at all. It was about being anti-vaccine and therefore anti-science, which I'm not, and I know many of you aren't. I personally taught high school science for a few years. In one of my episodes this summer, I showed off a Tdap jab that I got. I got it because I haven't had my tetanus shot since my days in the Navy, but also because I wanted to make it perfectly clear to the strawman pushers that I'm not a science-denying anti-vaxxer. Well, at least that was before the dictionary changed the definition, as they do, to defend the left's narrative because they can't win arguments fairly. So I guess now, according to the new definition, that I am an anti-vaxxer because I stand opposed to vaccine regulations, especially for those vaccines that haven't yet gone through the long-term studies required for every other vaccine prior to approval. I clearly went over that scientific timeline in that very video. The same one where I said the FDA only authorized Pfizer just so the government can mandate it in the workplace. I was called a conspiracy theorist for it, and then 2 weeks later was vindicated by Biden himself. But now Elon's leftist fanboys have dug themselves a new hole. It's a deep one. Because Elon Musk has come out against vaccine regulations and is now someone that they despise, an anti-vaxxer by their own definition. Woo! Congratulations, you guys. You managed to lump arguably the smartest man on the planet in with the anti-vaxxers, science deniers, deplorable racist Trump supporters. Don't worry, y'all join us eventually, whether you want to or not, as Sarah Silverman just recently found out the hard way. The camps you're building, you will one day find yourselves trapped in. It's not my intention to come off as some mean person in this video, okay? But I will continue to be bold and unapologetic. Because in my opinion, with the freedoms at stake, it's just too dangerous not to be. And I will always stand up for the rights of others and against bullies. Yeah, Elon's a rich and successful person. A lot of people love him, but you never know the difficulties that someone else may be going through. It's important that we watch each other's six. Godspeed.